Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. We are back at it again with recreating designer dresses on a budget from thrifted sheets because that's just kind of my brand at this point, and I know y'all love it just as much as I do. Hello everyone, welcome to another sewing tutorial, and for those of you who are brand new to my channel, a huge welcome to all of you. My name is Madison. I was a high school fashion design teacher for 4 years, have been sewing for over 20 years, and I love to share my passion for sewing and creativity with all of you, inspiring your creativity, growing your sewing skills, and giving you the confidence to be able to make clothes for yourself. I am very excited about today's video, as I am excited about literally every video that I film for my channel, but this one specifically because I feel like it is just so perfectly on trend right now with dresses that I have seen people wearing, colors that I feel like are really popular right now, and I just feel like this dress is going to be the quintessentially perfect summer dress. Recently, I have been gravitating more and more to the color red. I've never had anything against red, but usually I just gravitated more towards pastels or light, fun kind of colors. But I have realized that red is such a beautiful and classic color. I also feel like it looks good on literally everyone, and I have been seeing so many people recently wearing gorgeous red dresses, specifically midi dresses. I just feel like midi dresses in red are just such a perfect classic staple in your wardrobe. And so today we are going to be creating and sewing a red dress inspired by so many of the popular red dresses that I have seen from Reformation recently. Reformation is a clothing brand that I feel like really creates classic items of clothing in amazing quality. I feel like I see a lot of influencers and really just a lot of people on social media wearing Reformation, and everything that I see from Reformation I always love. But you guys know that I am definitely a very budget-ish conscious person, especially when it comes to my clothes. And so usually when I see something that I love from a brand that is way out of my budget, I try to figure out how I can make it myself. And that's precisely what we're going to be doing in today's video, but we're going to be taking a slightly different approach. If you have tuned into any of my other designer thrift flip remakes, you know that I usually am trying to completely duplicate a piece from a designer brand, and I obviously love that. But today we're drawing more inspiration from Reformation's red dresses, and I'm actually going to be using a pattern to make a dress that I feel like really just is so quintessentially Reformation. So that's what we're gonna be doing. I recently tested out a pattern from Maiden Mary for her first pattern launch. It's called the Riviera Dress. There's actually 3 different versions to it. There's a mini dress, and a corset top, and I fell in love with this dress the first time I ever saw her just share a sample before she ever released a pattern, and I was so glad that I could be a part of her pattern testing team. And when I say that this dress is literal perfection, I mean it is literal perfection. And after I made my tester sample, I realized that this dress just really felt like a Reformation dress to me. And I had recently purchased a red cotton sheet, and as soon as I made my test dress, I knew that I needed to make it in red because I felt like this dress in red would just be the perfect Reformation inspired dress. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Now, before we dive into this project, I do want to share some red dress inspiration from Reformation that's really inspiring the dress that I'm making today. And when I share these inspiration pics and then you see my dress at the end of the video, I feel like you're going to be able to see the connection of why I felt like this pattern need to be made in red, and why all of these red dresses from Reformation are my inspiration. All right, the first dress that I felt like really kind of captured the essence and the inspiration for the dress I want to make is the Sarah dress from Reformation. What I love about this Sarah dress, I'll put a picture right here, is it's a little bit more of a dropped waist. The waist kind of hits right at the mid hip, which I think is so beautiful, so flattering. I've really been loving more dropped waist dresses recently, and the pattern for the dress that we're making today is kind of a drop waist style, so I think it is just so flattering and so beautiful. So that's a great example of a beautiful red dress from Reformation. The other dress that I am obsessed with from Reformation is the Balia linen dress. love a good linen dress, but this kind of cut and style specifically, I think is just such a beautiful classic cut, classic fit, and this dress in red is just perfection. It's so beautiful. And there's some kind of gathering, ruching details at the bodice. The style lines I think are beautiful, and I feel like a lot of that ties into the pattern that I'm going to be making today. The other beautiful red dress that I love from Reformation is the Delia linen dress. It is a shorter kind of a bubble skirt dress, but the bodice has these beautiful style lines, and it's also dropped waist. And I just think the drop waist is so flattering. So a lot of kind of the style lines and the dropped waist element from this red dress are definitely inspiration for what we are going to be creating today. And then there is one more dress from Reformation that I really, really love and feel like is such a classic, and that's the Marella linen dress. This one has just a beautiful neckline, which is so similar to the dress in today's video that I'm going to be creating. We're not going to be obviously adding the puff sleeves, but I feel like just this neckline is so flattering, kind of like the square neckline. I feel like it really looks good on everyone. And the same thing for the Tagliatelle, I think that's how I'm pronouncing it, the Tagliatelle linen dress from Reformation as well. Another beautiful red, square neckline. The neckline and the sleeves on this specific style are very, very similar to the pattern today. So basically, I feel like I'm drawing a lot of different elements from all of these red dresses from Reformation, and I feel like the Riviera dress that we're going to be sewing today really pulls in all of these elements so perfectly, and I am so excited to make it in red. I think it's going to be the perfect summer dress, and I can't wait to walk you through this tutorial for how to make this beautiful Riviera dress inspired by all of the beautiful and quintessential red dresses from Reformation. So without further ado, let's dive in. All right, here is our red thrifted sheet that we are going to be using for this dress. I paid $4.99 for it at Savers. I don't think it was on sale when I got it, and I don't even remember checking the fiber context of this, but I'm gonna say it's 100%, no it's not. Okay, it's 60% cotton, 40% polyester. That's fine. You all know that I will use synthetic natural fiber blends if the natural fiber is more than 50%. So that's fine, we're gonna run with it. But it is the most beautiful red. It's the very similar shade to I feel like all the Reformation dresses, and this should be enough for the dress that I want to make today. And now it's time to get our pattern out of my newly organized sewing pattern binder. I recently shared my process for organizing all of my at-home printed sewing patterns in a recent video, so this is that. And I believe the Riviera dress is right here on the front, so that is what we are going to be making. Just going to take that entire pattern pack out. And these are all of the pattern pieces we are going to be using. So we have the strap. This is the side back, side front. We have, this is the gathered bust section, which I used on my original samples. And so there is a gathered bust section, and there's more of a fitted bustier section. I'm going to do the more fitted bustier rather than the gathered bust, so that's what we're going to be doing into this tutorial. Then we have the bust cups, the skirts, and then we also have the front section and the back section. I have all my pattern pieces. I'm going to pin it to my fabric and get all of those cut out, and then we're going to come back. Okay, so I've just laid out all of my pattern pieces, and I barely had enough fabric with this sheet. The thing about sewing with sheets is I usually have to get creative in how I fold the sheet to be able to have the right amount of folds and doubled up fabric for pattern pieces that I need to cut, and I just barely have enough. So I'm going to show you how I had to lay out the sheet in order to achieve the right amount of fabric to get all these pattern pieces cut out. All right, my floor desperately needs to get vacuumed, but here are my pattern pieces just laid out. I haven't pinned them yet, but what I had to do is I folded this side of the sheet over wide enough so that I could cut out the side gathered panel for the skirt. Then it's going to get cut out a second time underneath it, and I measured it out to make sure I had enough. This piece right here is the center front, and it also had to have a fold, so that's the reason why I folded this side over thicker and then this side over thinner, so I would have a fold for this. using that little bit of fabric over there to cut out additional bodice pieces. And then the other portion of the fold gets this long back panel, which doesn't need to be cut on a fold, but it's just wide enough to get it cut out. And then the rest of the bodice pieces and the straps. So barely enough. We had to finagle it around a little bit, but we made it work. All right, here are all of my pattern pieces cut out. I just cut what the directions said, which was 2 pieces of everything except for the bust cups, because I am not doing the gathered cup version. I am doing kind of more of the bustier fitted, so I have to cut double of these. So there's that. I also want to play around with raising the front kind of bodice neckline to be more curved, so I will show you my idea for that and if I decide to keep it. But now we're going to start sewing. We are first going to be starting off with the side front and the side back. We are going to mirror both of our side front pieces, and then those side back pieces we are going to match up with the side notches and pin them. After I pin the side front to the side back pieces, I am now going to sew those right sides together with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. After those seams are sewn, I'm going to finish my seams with my serger. After I finish my seams, I'm going to open up both of those pieces that are connected so that the right side is facing me, and then I'm going to take them over to my iron and give them a good press. This is what they look like now. I'm now going to set these pieces aside to work on the side gathered skirt sections. Taking both of the side skirt pieces, I'm going to open them up, and then I'm going to sew a basting stitch along the top. This is then going to be gathered to create the gathered side pieces of the skirt. Gently pulling one tail of each side of my basting stitch, I'm going to gather the side sections of the skirt until they are the width of the bottom raw edge of my side and back bodice pieces. As you can see here, I'm making sure that it is the correct width. After I had measured the correct width, I'm going to tie off the ends of my gathered sections, and then I'm going to pin it right sides together to the side section of my bodice. Making sure to match the side skirt with the side, back, and front bodice pieces right sides together, I am then going to pin along the gather and along the bottom edge of my bodice. I am then going to repeat that same step with the other side of my skirt and the other side of my bodice, pinning right sides together. Then we're going to take these over to my sewing machine and sew them with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. This seam is slightly curved, so it was really important to take my time and make sure that I was pivoting my fabric to get the perfect curve for these side skirt gathers. After attaching those pieces together, I'm then going to finish my raw edge with my serger, and now it's time to continue on with the center front of the dress. I'm then going to flip my bodice pieces up so that the right sides are facing me, and I'm going to lay them out mirrored. Now before we attach the center front section, I'm going to top stitch the seams on the sides of my bodice. This is going to give just a really unique construction element. So here I am top stitching right over those seams using about a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now this top stitching was not a part of the original instructions, but I just felt that top stitching on this red fabric would give it a really unique construction element and also really tie into the Reformation inspired look. And this is what the beautiful top stitching looks like. I love how it kind of elevates the professionalism in the construction of this dress, so definitely recommend it. After completing the sides of the dress, it's now time to attach the center front of the dress. Taking the center front piece, I'm going to match it right sides together with the left side of my dress, carefully pinning along the curve and matching up any notches that are there. After pinning the center front of my dress to the left side of my dress, I am then going to repeat that step, pinning the center front to the side right of my dress. Once both of the sides are pinned, I am going to sew them using a 3/8 inch seam allowance.
After the center front is attached, I am going to finish those raw edges on my serger, after which it is time for some more top stitching along those seams that I just sewed. Again, this is not part of the original instructions, but I just wanted top stitching all over the seams of this dress to create additional style lines. So I am top stitching down those center front lines using about a 1/4 seam allowance.
Alright, so here's what the bodice is looking like with all the top stitching. This is not part of the original pattern. I just really felt like this red dress needed some extra top stitching as a style detail, and so I did it on all of the style lines along the front. So all of that is done. Now it's time to put the bust cups in.
For this next step, I need the bust center pieces and the side cup pieces. These have been cut 2 times, so we are going to open up that center bust section 2 times. Then we are going to take these side cups, match up those notches, and pin them along the side curves, creating the center front bust section. After sewing the curved seams of the bust, I also pressed my seams open so that they are nice and flat on the front.
Alright, kind of weird angle here, but I wanted to talk through this bodice situation. So originally the bodice, like the bust cups, go straight across, but I cut my pattern piece with a little bit of a curve at the top because I wanted to play around with this idea of having a little bit more of a curve rather than straight across. One of the Reformation dresses has this beautiful bodice that's printed seams and it has a curve along the top, and I've always thought it was so beautiful. I feel like I need to sew this together with the other layer to truly see what it looks like, and it's hard because I'm wearing like stripes, but it has a little bit more of a curve right there rather than being just straight across. The straight across is really pretty, but I feel like just adding a little bit more is going to add something interesting. So I'm gonna put that aside right now because I need to work on hemming around the top of the dress, and then we're going to come back to this bodice and figure out what to do.
Now before I finish the bodice, I decided to attach my 2 back sections together. Those are pinned to the additional side back pieces. I stitched them and then I finished those seams, and now you can see that the full dress from front to back is starting to take shape. And by now, you know the drill. After sewing a seam, it's time to top stitch them. So it's off to top stitch the back seams.
Alright, the back of the dress is sewn on to the sides and the front, so now it is time to put my bust cups in here and then also hem the top of the dress. Alright, this is what the hem of the side of the bodice into the back looks like. It's just folded over and pressed 2 times to 1 centimeter. So I folded it down. We're going to stitch the top on the right side and the left side.
Coming back to my bust cup sections, I'm going to place those right sides together, matching up those seams and pinning those first, and then I'm going to pin along the top and sew it at 3/8 inch seam allowance.
Okay, so I just have the dress pinned on me to try it on and see how I like where the neckline is right now. Obviously, this is not fitting how it needs to because it's literally just pinned in the back, but this is more of the curve along the front. And I can't decide if it looks curved or if it just looks like I sewed a really crooked line, because that's honestly what it looks like. Really, the original would be like this. I just feel like the shape gives it a little something different, so I think I'm going to keep it. However, for some reason, the side of the bust cup area is not aligning with the side of the bodice. So I am going to need to taper that in a bit more. And also, I forgot that I was supposed to sew my sleeves into this. So we're gonna have to rewind on that and go put my sleeves in before we actually attach this. Totally forgot. But yeah, those ends are going to have to be sewn in a bit.
Okay, backtracking to create my straps, I just sewed them right sides together, flipped them right side out, and then pressed them down. Then I'm going to put really tiny basting stitches along the top and the bottom of those straps, and that is then how we are going to attach it into the bust cup and the dress. The gathered section just kind of give it a really interesting element to the strap. I'm going to match up those straps just about 1/2 inch to the side of my center front seams. I had to seam rib rip those seams out, and then I also had to kind of recurve the sides of the bust section down. So again, I'm pinning those straps to the side of my center front seams and then curving those seams of the top of my bust cup down. So this is what that looks like once it's sewn, and now I'm going to top stitch along the top of the bodice and down those center front curves. For the top stitch on the bust, I had to make sure that I was top stitching to the correct side where that seam would match up to my main dress. So attaching the bust section to the dress, I matched up the center curved seams of my bust to those center seams of the center front of my dress. After those were correctly matched up, I'm then going to pin the side curves of my bust section, making sure that everything is just kind of laying really nicely along that curve, and then also making sure to correctly match up the top sides of my bust to the top sides of my dress. After the bust section was pinned into my dress, I sewed that on a 3/8 inch seam allowance. This is what that looks like. I'm going to finish those seams with my serger, and this is what those finished seams look like. And then, you guessed it, we are going to top stitch underneath the bust section.
Alright, it is another day, and I am hoping to finish my red dress today. It's back there on the mannequin. All that is left is to install the zipper, and the zipper actually gets installed before I finish attaching my straps at the back to the correct length and hemming it. So that's what we're going to do now. I love to use my dress forms to help fit my dresses for the perfect zipper placement, because usually if you just sew your zippers straight into a dress along the back, it's probably going to be like too loose at the back or too tight at the bottom. And the thing about our bodies is that everyone has a different like angle of a curve for their back, and so I like using my dress form to get a really good placement for my zipper, because usually I am fitting my zipper to different areas, like taking in more fabric at the top, less fabric at the bottom around my hips. So anyways, I will show you what that looks like pinned to my dress form. Then I'm going to draw some lines, and then we'll use that to install the zipper. Also, I have not talked about this in a really long time, but I have two different dress forms, a size 6 and a size 8. I believe this one is a size 6, which is what I use for most of my projects. Yes, it's my size 6. There we go. And both of my dress forms were sent to me by the brand Mannequin Mall. I have 2 videos where I talk more about the dress forms, and I used to have a discount code for them, so I need to see if I still do. And if so, I will drop it down in the description of this video, but highly recommend them. They're really good, and I always forget to talk about them in my video. So anyways, here's my red dress on my dress form. This bodice is looking so beautiful. We're gonna turn it around. And this is my zipper placement at the back. So I like to put it onto my dress form. This dress form is pretty close to my own measurements. The only thing is that it's not quite as broad in the shoulders as I am. But I take my pins and I just pin the back together. And I always try to really curve it to the back curve of my dress form, because I know that my back is pretty curved. And so I usually end up taking in more fabric in the curve of my back and less at the top and the bottom. This red dress is fitting much more snugly than the first variation of this dress that I made, because I took in some of the side seams. So it is going to be a little bit more snugger on the hips, but I think I still have enough fabric to put my invisible zipper in. So now I'm just going to go put some erasable lines, and then that's where I will sew my zipper.
It's time to sew in the invisible zipper. One of the tips to sewing in the invisible zipper is to actually iron the zipper teeth flat before you try to sew it. This is going to allow you to get a really close seam, but it's actually going to make your zipper invisible. So after I had ironed all of those teeth, I am then going to take my zipper and pin it right side facing down along that line that I had drawn onto my fabric for the fit on the mannequin. This is how I get my zippers to be so well fit to my body. So after that left side is pinned down, I'm going to sew it on my sewing machine using my zipper foot. Now, if you have an invisible zipper foot, those are extra helpful. I don't, so I'm just using a regular zipper foot and maneuvering it so that I get the seam as close to those zipper teeth as possible. The closer you sew it to the zipper teeth, the more invisible your zipper is going to be. And this is what the first side of my zipper looks like once it's sewn, and now it's on to the next side. Now, my tip for accurately and evenly pinning and matching up the opposite side of my zipper is to close my zipper. Then I'm going to match up the top back section of my dress so that the top sides of the zipper equally match up, and then I'm going to pin down along my zipper, matching it up with that line that I already drew so that I have the perfect fit to myself. I'm going to pin that all the way down, and then after I've pinned down, I'm going to unzip my zipper, take it back over to my sewing machine, and sew the zipper unzipped so again I can get the closest seam to my zipper teeth. This is probably the most in-depth look at how to correctly install and sew an invisible zipper I have included in any of my sewing tutorials. I've been meaning to film a step-by-step instruction video on how to actually install an invisible zipper, so hopefully that's coming to the channel soon. And after sewing both sides, this is what the invisible zipper looks like. It really truly is invisible because that seam is so close to the zipper teeth. Now, the key part about an invisible zipper is that you don't actually sew the bottom of that seam closed until the zipper is installed. So I had to go do that. Then I also decided to reinforce kind of the side underneath sections of my zipper with some fusible interfacing, just because I knew my dress was going to be a little bit tight and I didn't want like my zipper to rip. So anyways, I did that, and then I finished those raw edges of the sides of my zipper and sew down the top little flaps of my zipper. Now before I sew my hem to complete this dress, I first need to attach the back of the straps. I'm going to attach these right sides together, and then I'm going to flip them up and resew them. It's a really interesting like strap construction. I also have really sloped shoulders, so I opted to kind of pin and sew these a little bit more diagonally. So I'm pinning those right sides together just to the side of my kind of back seams, and then after those are sewn, we are going to flip them up and then stitch them, and I will show you what that looks like. So the first stitch kind of aligns with the top hem of the dress. After I've stitched that, I'm then going to flip my strap up and I'm going to stitch along the top hem so it kind of aligns with the top edge of my dress. And this is what the straps look like once they are sewn onto my dress. I also did a fit test before I sewed these on to make sure that I sewed them at the correct length. That's really important for the overall fit of this dress. And the last step before this dress is done is to sew in the hem. I hemmed this dress using a 1 centimeter hem as the directions called for, so I just folded up the bottom edge 2 times to 1 centimeter, pressed it, and sewed it into place. And this is what the finished dress is looking like, laying flat on my sewing table. So now I think it's time to show you what this actually looks like on and how it draws a lot of inspiration from the Reformation dresses. So let me know what you think in the grand reveal. So what do we think of the finished dress? Is this dress giving Reformation inspired vibes? Because I definitely think it is, and I love all of the unique style details of this dress and really how quintessentially classic it is. I'm definitely going to be wearing this dress all throughout the summer, and I hope that you give this dress a try for yourself. Mary's pattern was absolutely impeccably made and so dreamy, and the dress itself is just stunningly beautiful. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about today's video, this dress, your thoughts on Reformation dresses, all the things. As always, thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel, give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Happy sewing and happy designer DIY duping.